Okay, picking up on Long Live the Pumpkin Queen, Chapter 11. Please enjoy the narration and the background music I have selected for you this evening. I do hope you enjoyed. Please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. It really does help my channel grow. Thank you, and let's begin. It's nearly evening when I step through the doorway to Halloween Town, once more back to the place where I uncovered the door into the ancient realm, into Dreamtown. The sun is waxing, pumpkin glooms down, dull and flat on the horizon, hovering just beyond the spinning trees. The air is quiet, and for a moment I think maybe I should pass back through the woods across the borders of Halloween Town to my home. I could see Jack maybe for the last time before I do the thing I'm about to do. I could run my fingertips along his cold cheeks, whisper his name, and tell him I'm sorry in case I don't return. But between the stirring of leaves and the wind, and the wind through the autumn birch trees brings the soft hiss of a voice in the distance, a voice that doesn't belong. The Sandman is still in Halloween Town. He hums his pleasant lullaby, searching for me in shadows and dark corners, trying to beckon me out. He must sense that someone is still awake, someone he hasn't yet found, me. Just like Santa Claus knows where children. Oh, Santa Claus knows which children have been naughty or nice, and Jack knows which children are afraid of blacks, widow spiders, and which are terrified of moon howling werewolves. The Sandman must know he hasn't yet fallen asleep. Who hasn't yet fallen asleep? I can't risk going back to town, so instead I tread deeper into the forest to the thicket of vines where the newly discovered tree still stands, partially hidden. I pull the dead branches I had used to block the doorway to prevent anything else from slithering out into our town. But now I will be the thing that slips through a doorway uninvited. Yeah, you kind of are, Sally. Which, if you had just remembered to close the door in the first place, none of this would be happening, but hey. A cold nerve runs down my spine, the fear like salt on a fresh wound, making me want to recoil and slink back from the doorway and hide in the dark like a coward. I think of the old abandoned well just past Lock, Stock, and Barrel's treehouse. I could climb down inside and hide amongst abandoned cobwebs and forgotten coins from those whose nightmares were never granted. I could stay there and wait. Days would pass, months maybe. Jack and the others would sleep, and I would be safe and hidden. Yeah, but for how long? Like that's the real question here, Sally. How long? At one time, I had thought myself brave, a girl who could surely slay monsters if given the chance, because I am a monster myself, created by a madman, living amongst ghouls and ghosts and grim reapers. But now I wonder if I'm the wrong heroine for this story. Well, considering this is a bestseller, Sally, I don't think you are. I don't think you're the wrong heroine. After all, I left a door open into another realm, a dangerous realm. I was heedless, impatient, partial. I haven't only ruined Halloween and all the other holidays. I have destroyed the life I could have had with Jack because it barely began. Before it barely began. The guilt is a double-edged knife twisting inside me, breaking threads and tearing me apart. Could the fool of a story also be the hero? Doubtful. Not true. I'd like to introduce you to Dragon Ball Z, or any shonen protagonist. But I have loved Jack for so long to let him be fated to a life worse than death. A life spent in a nightmare he couldn't wake from. I would cross 1,000 thresholds into 1,000 different worlds for him. I stepped close to the door, fingers reaching for the dark silver knob in the distance. A low hum rises up over the treetops. The Sandman isn't far away now. Cooning? His drowsy tune. Searching. If I don't go now, I'll lose my nerve. I pull the small door with the wounding moon etched onto the tree, feeling the same heavy-eyed lull as the first time I found the door. I close my eyes and hold my breath, bracing myself for whatever awaits on the other side, and then step through the door into a realm the leprechaun called Dreamtown. I plummet through the doorway, landing seconds later onto an oddly soft fleece ground. It takes a moment for my eyes to adjust. The sky's not quite daylight, not quite night. Somewhere in between. Above all, tall, lazy trees sway in the breeze, swaying branches dotted with tiny white flowers, their fragrance like swamp gray tea, their motion gentle and melodic. I pull the warm evening air into my lungs and find myself staring through their limbs and a calm buzzing in the base of my skull. The anxiousness I had felt just before stepping through the doorway had slipped away like a spring storm, and I feel like I could coil myself into a shell beneath this grove of trees and sink into a half-waking daydream, that easy kind of sleep, eyes still wide, while the silken breeze pushes cotton clouds across the skyline. But I shake off the scents rubbing at my I need to stay awake. Oh, rubbing at my eyes. My thumb was blocking it. I need to stay awake, and I need to keep moving. The path out of the woods is wide and windy. The sky casts in a kind of permanent twilight, and dozy dusk quaintly while the moon sits full and heavy in the sky, a bloated orb meant to soothe the worn, seduce them into slumber. Besides, the path is a Menderson? Bubbly Creek? Mindling, Bubbling Creek. Despite the gentle haze as water pours out over the rocks, I move cautiously down the path, wary of anything that might appear without warning. This town might be populated with sandman creatures, hundreds of them, lying in wait, sand clutched in their fists, eyes darkened and cloudy and malevolent, malevolent. But the forest is mostly still, docile seeming, yet I trust none of it. I peer over my shoulder, checking the way back through the woods in case I need to run. Head thumping with fear and adrenaline. I don't want to get lost or trapped. Finally, I reach the edge of the forest and step out into a clearing. At first, I think it's a meadow, tree, tall grass swaying in the wind, but as I squint through the dusk light, I realize they're fields, rows of perfectly shaped crops, reminiscent of a landscape I saw in Thanksgiving Town. Only here, instead of corn and pumpkins, the fields are thick with lavender, and I can smell its calming, inviting scent hanging in the air. And startling, impossibly, there are people in the fields. Startlingly, impossibly. My chest raises in my throat, a daisy whirl of relief and excitement. I watch as they wander the rows of lavender, kneeling in the soil to harvest the fragrant plants. Some are working quietly, others are humming to themselves slowly melodies to remind them of the Sandman's luring song back in Halloween Town. People are still awake here, yet I stay in the tree line, hidden by shadows, unsure if I should be afraid. They seem harmless enough, farmers working well into the evening light, although oddly, instead of straw sun hats and work-worn overalls, every last one of them is wearing strapped pajamas, footed pajamas, and pajamas with fuzzy cotton collars and hoods pulled over their heads as if they should be settling into bed for the night. Except they're out in the fields cutting lavender from the soil. They bear no resemblance to the Sandman creature. They slip their slippered feet are planted firmly in the dirt, not hovering above the ground, and no sand is spilling from their pockets. They are simple farmers, uninterested in any other than harvesting their crops. Uninterested in anything other than harvesting their crops. Slowly, I step free from the darkened forest and move down towards the field. They don't seem to notice me, at least not at first. Their faces bent towards the rows of plants, singing and humming from their throats. But as I make my way down the center row through the field, I reach a man hoisting up a basket of cut lavender into his arms, wearing pale blue pajamas with white cloud stitched into the collar, and atop his head a long sleepy cap with a small bell fastened to the pointed end. He turns, noticing me, but he only tips his head and smiles as if I were not a stranger at all. Then starts down the path away from me, toting the basket in his one hand and a metal candle holder with a tall candlestick burning bright in the other to light his way. Sir, I say softly, following him down the path. He stops and lifts his sleepy eyes to me once again. The moon has awakened, he says dreamingly, as if I asked him a question about the soft moonlight, and it soothes on a lake like a blue button rose that glows by mistake. That grew by mistake. I tilt my head confused. Excuse me. Nothing but time in the world made of rhymes. He answers in return. I clear my throat. I'm sorry I don't understand. I was wondering if you might be able to help me. The man's eyes settle on me as discrepancing? Describing, whatever. My words in his mind, deciphering my words in his mind. Softly through some old, dusty language long ago forgotten. I've come from one of the holiday realms, Halloween Town. I say carefully, not entirely sure can if I can trust this man, if I can trust anything here in this strange world. It seems I've set loose a creature who I believe came from your world. He's called the Sandman. The man's eyes leak away from me at the mention of the Sandman, quick like a frightened forest animal. He put everyone he's put everyone in my town to sleep, and I'm wondering if you know how to stop him. I swallow, sensing an itch of unease rising in the man, or perhaps wake everyone up. The man looks briefly like he's going to say something, a tension along his jaw, eyebrows stuffed close, but instead he properly blows out the candle in his hand. The features of his face instantly sink into the darkness, then hastily away from me down the path through the rows of lavender. He didn't even look back. I feel the seams at the corners of my mouth tug down and unsure what just happened, but a few yards down of the lavender rows, a woman wearing footed pajamas with one little peach flower embroidered along the neckline and a candle burning beside her has lifted her head and is peering at me. Hello, I say gently. Maybe you can help me, but before I can finish, she pulls her wool sleeping cap down over her ears and turns back to work. Although they seem unflustered by a ragdoll in their fields, the mention of the name Sandman clearly makes them unease, a terrible looking darkening their sleepy eyes. But aside from the leprechaun, they're the first townspeople I've found awake in all the towns and realms. I lift my gaze in the distance beyond the neatly planted rows of lavender, beyond the sloping fields is a massive stone wall encircling a town, Dreamtown. The man who spoke to me in riddles is moving towards it, and I do the same. Alright, that's going to be a good spot to end for right now. I want to thank you all for coming. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff for me. It really does help my channel grow. We'll pick this back up later. Thank you so much for your time and have a beautiful day.